Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a sore stack about someone truly disturbing, Robert Lee Walden Jr. And look, we're not focusing on the trials or, the media frenzy around it.
Yeah, not at all.
Our mission today is purely criminological. We want to use the sources to really get inside his head.
Understand the why behind the violence.
Exactly. His victim selection, how he operated his MO, and crucially, the psychological signature. What made him tick as an organized sadist?
And right away, you have to look past that public image he cultivated.
Right. The sources mention him being seen as a gifted athlete, even a model inmate later on.
Yeah, and that facade, that appearance of normalcy, that's absolutely central. For these kinds of organized offenders, understanding how they maintain that gap between the public face and the hidden violence, that's key to seeing how they operate for so long.
He was good at it.
Very good. He mastered that duality.
What's really terrifying, though, is that the sources show this wasn't something that just appeared out of nowhere. The foundation was there early, way before the Tucson sexual assaults.
Definitely. There's a clear pattern of escalation starting back in 1989.
So July 89, there's a hit and run documented, shows a kind of reckless disregard. But then just the next month, August 89, the violence gets personal, it gets physical. He picks up a female hitchhiker and just chokes her. Briefly, but still.
And that August incident, it's so important. It establishes that baseline, this capacity for non-sexual impulsive violence.
Yeah.
Pure malice, really.
Right. It wasn't about sex or robbery then.
No, it was about power, physical subjugation, simple as that. It showed he was already willing to use potentially lethal force. He was testing it out, before the sexual violence really ramped up.
He knew he could do it.
And maybe even liked the feeling of that control, that power.
So if that choking was a kind of practice run, then his home life, that was the real laboratory, wasn't it? The place where he honed everything, low risk.
Absolutely. Let's look at his relationship with Catherine Mills, Kathy. He was 21. She was only 15 when they started.
Wow, 15.
And within 6 months, they were married. She was just 16.
That grooming, that isolation.
Textbook power assertive behavior. He put on the charming and funny act first, right? To secure her, to gain that total possession.
And
then the mask drops. Instantly, violently.
The sources are chillingly specific. It only took 2 days. 48 hours after the wedding, he hits her for the first time.
And that wasn't just the start of the abuse. It set the entire pattern. Total control, psychological and physical. It mirrored exactly how he'd later control strangers.
We really need to look at the kind of violence at home. It wasn't just hitting, was it? It was about creating terror.
Yes, through unpredictability. The extreme volatility. It was a constant psychological weapon, keeping her terrified, off balance, always waiting for the next explosion.
I mean, the examples, they're almost irrational. Throwing a bowl of soup across the room because he didn't like it.
And then making her clean it up. That's humiliation, dominance. It wasn't about the soup. It was about crushing her sense of safety.
But the worst one, the one that really stands out.
Breaking her jaw.
While she was holding their newborn baby.
Think about that. Why that specific moment?
Yeah.
It's profoundly disturbing.
It's an attack on vulnerability itself, isn't it? It tells her nothing is sacred, not the child, not her safety. Nothing stands between him and his need for destructive power.
Exactly. No lines he won't cross. Pure, untethered dominance over the vulnerable.
And the psychological stuff was just as bad. Systematic.
This is where he practices the control tactics he'll use later. These weird, rigid rules. No logic to them, except asserting his authority.
Like the recliner. Nobody could sit in his chair.
It sounds minor, right? Almost silly. But it's not.
No.
It's power through absurdity, training her to obey without thinking. And then there's the isolation, forcing her into the bedroom for hours while he had the run of the house.
Controlling her space.
Just like he'd later bind and blindfold victims. Control their sight, their movement. It's the same mechanism.
And the sources mention the taunting, that early sadism.
Making comments about her younger sister's appearance, her 14-year-old sister.
That's to hurt her.
Pure psychological sadism. It served no practical purpose for him, not in the MO sense. It didn't keep her there or stop her leaving. It was purely about inflicting emotional pain, degradation, jealousy, insecurity.
So you put it all together, the physical abuse, the isolation, the taunting, the absolute control.
Yeah, the home was the behavioral lab. He practiced and perfected his predatory signature there in a low-risk setting.
He didn't just snap and become a serial rapist.
Yeah, he trained himself for it for years, inside his own home.
Okay, so if home was the lab, His job provided the hunting grounds and the perfect cover. Let's unpack this next part, because his job as an exterminator for Arizona Chemical Service Company, that seemed absolutely critical to his crime spree.
It was the single biggest facilitator. It created the systemic vulnerability he just exploited brilliantly.
The uniform. Red shirt, blue pants.
Instant plausible deniability. In an apartment complex, who looks twice at a guy in a work uniform.
Nobody. He's invisible. Or just seen as maintenance, not a threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It disarms suspicion right away. Bypass that first crucial defense mechanism people have, awareness.
And the job gave him, what, 3 key advantages?
Yeah, at least 3. First, unsupervised mobility. He's driving around Tucson all day for work, access to everywhere.
Without raising eyebrows.
Second, that cloak of legitimacy we mentioned, the uniform. But third, and this is the most chilling,
Access and intelligence.
that's the operational genius, if you can call it that. His job gave him a legitimate reason to be on private property, sometimes even inside apartments.
So he could watch people.
Unparalleled surveillance opportunities. He could check out layouts, spot security weaknesses, see who lived alone when they were home. He was basically getting paid to do reconnaissance on potential victims.
And he wasn't just randomly driving around. The sources are clear. He was geographically stable.
A classic pattern. He wasn't crossing the state. His attacks were clustered really tightly. North Alvernon Way, East Blackledge Drive, South Craycroft Street.
Very specific areas.
And operating in that familiar zone, his comfort zone, that gives huge advantages. You know, the escape routes, the quiet times, maybe even police patrols.
Yeah.
And crucially, his own apartment was just blocks away from where Velasco and Burholmes lived.
That's incredibly bold.
Or arrogant, bringing the violence right to his own doorstep almost, operating on his turf.
And that local knowledge clearly fed into his victim selection. It wasn't about looks, was it?
No, not primarily. It was about vulnerability, opportunity. Exclusively women, always alone, often targeted in those really exposed transitional spaces.
Like checking the mail.
Or laundry rooms, yeah. Or just crossing the threshold into their own apartment. Brief moments where your guard is naturally down.
He was watching for those moments.
Meticulously. The criteria were simple. Easy target, low chance of interruption. That signals high organization.
Which brings us to the stalking. The surveillance before the attack. He was patient.
Very calculated. Look at the Vicky Blanar timeline. She sees him near the pool. She leaves, comes back later. He's still there, just hanging around, observing.
Not just passing through.
No, he was stationary, waiting. For hours, maybe.
Yeah.
Until she was isolated, until she turned her back. Then the blitz attack. That's chilling patience. That's planning.
And the uniform meant nobody thought anything of it while he was watching. Like that witness, Elaine Jordan.
Right. Saw him at the Desert Sage complex where Burholmes was later killed. He had his uniform, carrying equipment she just assumed.
Maintenance.
Exactly. His presence was completely normalized, even as he was casing the place.
That confidence, maybe arrogance, it led him to be pretty brazen, territorially speaking.
Definitely. Returning to that same North Alvernon East Blackledge complex 3 times. The 89 rape, Velasco in 91, then Burholmes just weeks later.
That's risky.
It is, but for some offenders, returning to the scene is powerful. Shows confidence, sure, but maybe also a need to relive it, to reinforce that sense of ownership over the territory. He was molding it.
Okay, so let's get into the modus operandi, the MO, the actual how of the crimes, the practical steps. What stands out immediately is his flexibility. He wasn't a one-trick pony. He could switch tactics.
Right. That adaptability is a big sign of organization and thinking on his feet. If he needed immediate control in a semi-public space, he'd use the blitz attack.
Like with Vicky Blanar. Ran up behind her, knife out, forced her into the laundry room. Speed, surprise.
Overwhelmed them instantly. But if he needed to get inside past a locked door,
He'd use a ruse. Deception.
the Cristina Velasco attack is the classic example. Uses the uniform, pretends to be a plumber.
Capitalizing on her thinking her pipes were actually leaking.
Exactly. It's smart in a predatory way. He uses his professional identity to bypass her defenses, get invited into the secure space. Then he controls everything. That takes planning, acting, exploiting trust.
And once he had control, the methods were pretty consistent. Weapons, ligatures.
The knife was central, but often more for terror than actual cutting initially.
Held to Blanar's throat the whole time.
And with Velasco, remember, he runs something down her back, asks if she wants to feel it harder. Pure psychological warfare, using the threat of the knife to paralyze her.
Until Burholmes, then it becomes lethal.
Yes. 2 deep cuts to the throat. Fatal. And the slashing of the breast and chest. We'll come back to that. That's more signature than MO.
Okay. And the ligatures. You said there's a learning curve visible there.
Absolutely. And this is crucial evidence of an organized thinking offender who learns from mistakes.
How so?
He liked using things from the scene, less risk than carrying his own tools. But with Velasco, he tries to strangle her twice. First with phone cord, then a hairdryer cord. Flimsy stuff.
And they failed.
Yeah, they broke or just weren't strong enough. He couldn't complete the strangulation.
So he learned.
He learned. Weeks later, Miguel Burhans, he makes a different choice. A heavy electrical cord from a table lamp. And this time,
It worked.
it worked. That progression failure, analysis, correction success, that's a chilling insight into his mindset. He's actively refining his methods, learning how to kill more effectively.
And the assault itself, the core acts, they followed a pattern, a script.
Very much so. Highly consistent, almost ritualized. Suggests he's playing out an internal fantasy, not just reacting.
Starts with forced disrobing.
Always. It's about humiliation, stripping their identity right away, ripping Blanner's clothes off, tearing Velasco's shirt and bra open, instantly dehumanizing them, turning them into objects.
Then the sexual acts themselves. Fondling, penetration.
Standard for sexual assault, unfortunately. But with Velasco, he adds that extreme sensory deprivation.
Blindfolding, gagging, binding her hands and feet.
That's maximum control. It goes way beyond just stopping resistance. It's about complete objectification. She's silenced, immobilized, helpless. That heightened vulnerability seems essential for his fantasy.
And all through this, he's using verbal threats.
Constantly, telling Blanard he'd kill her, telling Velasco he'd come back and kill her if she reported it. It's about extending his dominance, ensuring silence, keeping that psychological control even after he's gone.
Okay, so if the MO is the how, the practical steps, the signature is the why.
Exactly. The psychological motivation. These are the things he does that aren't strictly necessary to commit the crime or get away with it. They fulfill his unique, violent, sexual fantasies.
And Walden's signature behaviors scream sadism.
Absolutely. His driving need wasn't just sexual release. It was inflicting psychological terror and physical suffering. The crime scenes weren't just locations. They were theaters of terror, designed to maximize fear, prolong the agony. These acts are purely signature, gratuitous.
Like the taunting, mocking Velasco when she cried out during the assault.
Zero tactical value. Doesn't help the rape, doesn't help him escape.
It's purely for him.
Yes, it's contempt. Her distress is the source of his arousal. Mocking her fear fulfills that sadistic need.
But the most chilling signature, the one that really gets under your skin, is the feigned departure.
Oh, yes, that is sophisticated psychological torture. It requires awareness, performance, theatricality almost.
Creating hope just to smash it.
Precisely. With Vicky Blanard, it started. He leaves the laundry room, comes back, leaves again, comes back again, just stretching out the terror.
Far longer than needed for the assault itself.
But he perfected it with Cristina Velasco. Binds her, rapes her, then goes through the whole act of leaving, jingles keys, opens the front door, closes it, making her think, okay, it's over, he's gone.
That moment of relief.
And just as she feels that flicker of hope, he walks back in, laughs, and says that line the sources recorded. I'm not gone yet, dummy, I'm still here.
Wow.
That quote.
Yeah.
That's pure Walden. It's not about escape, it's about witnessing that hope die. He needed to be there laughing as her spirit broke. That emotional devastation was as vital to his fantasy as the physical violence.
And he tried to make that fear last forever, telling Velasco he knew everything about her, would kill her if she talked.
Claims of omniscience. It's about creating permanent psychological control. Making her feel like he's always watching, could reappear anytime. An eternal prisoner of fear.
But eventually that need for control tipped over into a need to kill, and the homicides became extreme, overkill.
The fantasy demanded more intensity, more finality. You see it in the cases he was linked to later. Nola Jean Knight, rape followed by a severe beating, found naked, battered. That level of blunt force trauma prone to sadistic rage spilling over.
More than just subduing her.
Much more. Then Denain Brevet de May, bludgeoned with a cinder block. That's extreme, brutal depersonalization, almost trying to annihilate the victim as a person.
But the absolute peak, the full expression of the sadism, was Miguel Burhans, June 13th, 1991.
Yes, that crime brings everything together. The precise MO fused with the unrestrained fury of his signature sadism.
The attack itself was ferocious, hit her with a clay table lamp, shattering it on her back.
Immediate, overwhelming physical force. But then, the sadism demands more, prolonged suffering.
The combination of methods, Blunt force strangulation with that lamp cord he'd learned to use, and the knife to the throat cutting.
And the pathologist's testimony. Yeah. It's just horrifying. Perhans was conscious, aware, struggling for minutes after her carotid artery was cut. The scene confirmed it. Her hand was still tangled in that heavy lamp cord around her neck when she was found. She was fighting for her life while he strangled her, and her struggle. That was likely part of his gratification.
And then, the final act. The mutilation.
The sexual mutilation.
Yeah.
Using the knife to slash her breast and chest after the fatal injuries. That is the absolute signature of sadism.
It serves no purpose for the crime itself.
None. She's already dying or dead. It's symbolic. Final possession. Rage. Utter dehumanization. It strongly suggests her resistance, her fierce fight for life, shattered his fantasy of easy control, and that triggered a final, annihilating fury against her very womanhood.
So, when you put all this together, the rehearsals at home, the job enabling him, the flexible MO, the escalating sadism, we get a pretty clear picture.
Extremely clear, criminologically speaking. Walden fits the profile perfectly. An organized, geographically stable, sadistic, serial sexual predator. Every piece fits.
And his intelligence, his organization.
Yeah.
It's evident in how he tried to avoid getting caught, that forensic awareness.
Yes. That's so telling. After Velasco gave that detailed description, uniform, keys, pager, what did Walden do?
He adapted.
Right. He didn't stop, but he cut his hair. Ditched the pager and keys. That's not panic. That's calculated risk management. A thinking offender actively trying to disrupt the investigation, trying to blend back into that normality he worked so hard to project.
And even after he was caught, that mask stayed on. His confession, years later, to the Brevet de Mai murder.
From death row, yeah.
Was that actual remorse?
Highly unlikely, given his psychopathy. The sources lean towards it being a final act of narcissistic control.
How so?
He couldn't be executed again. By confessing, he was taking ownership, claiming his entire legacy of violence, making sure the full story, his version, was on the record. It's about controlling the narrative, even from prison. A final declaration of his power.
So the whole arc is just chillingly logical, in its own twisted way, from those early non-sexual assaults and the domestic tyranny.
The non-lethal rapes using deception.
And finally escalating to these incredibly brutal rape murders, driven by that sadistic fantasy that just kept demanding more.
His whole criminal career was systematic because it was built around satisfying those deep psychological needs for dominance, control, and the infliction of suffering. And he was so good at it, so effective for so long, because his methods were so organized. The camouflage, the surveillance, the adaptability, it made him almost invisible.
So, wrapping this up.
Yeah.
What does this deep dive into Robert Lee Walden Jr.'s mind mean for you, the listener?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Walden's most dangerous weapon wasn't the knife or his strength. It was that mask, that carefully built illusion of normalcy.
The charming husband.
The remorseful inmate later on. The ordinary guy in the work uniform, all parts of a performance. This case just hammers home how systematic, psychologically driven violence can hide right behind the most mundane facade.
It's not just about the evil acts, but the effort it takes to maintain that split.
Exactly. The sustained, calculated work required for an organized predator to live that double life.
Yeah. And the really provocative thought, I suppose, is just how easily someone like that can operate right under our noses, using perceived legitimacy, hunting in familiar places. The real horror isn't always the chaotic explosion. Sometimes it's the quiet, structured evil that wears a perfect disguise.
Makes you wonder how many masks are out there operating in plain sight.